Okay, Roderic, can you tell me how the canvassing is going?
Canvassing is going well. Obviously, Dublin West, it's a big area from Tyrrellstown all the way on to Ongar, Castleknock, Blanche, and then all the area of Ashtown and Pelletstown as well. So we're trying to get across all parts of the constituency, both through knocking on doors, dropping leaflets, and meeting people at train stations, schools, shopping centres. But look, the response is very good. A lot of people saying they're voting Green for the first time because of their worries about the environment. And then a lot of people saying, listen, Roderic, we know you've been working hard on the council over the last number of years, and we think maybe we'd like to see you represent us in the Dáil. So feeling good. I feel there's a strong support there, but it's a very tough constituency. Some really big names here. And I need every number one vote possible. I think I'm in a fight for the final seat here, so I'm working very hard to deliver that.
All right, cool. And what are the biggest issues that are coming up for your canvassing?
Housing is absolutely huge. People just sickened by the homelessness crisis in Dublin and in our other cities. And indeed, people are seeing people sleeping rough here in Dublin 15 as well. In recent days, the issue of the pension and the raise in the pension age and forcing people who have maybe been forced to retire due to mandatory retirement, making them go on job seekers allowance. I think a lot of people have been really disturbed by that. Public transport is a huge thing in Dublin 15. The fact that it's such a growing area, and yet it's becoming increasingly hard to get around the place. And a lot of people are bringing up the issues of environment, both locally here in Dublin 15 and the wider climate issues internationally.
And the issues that are coming up, they're the same kind of issues that you and the Green Party are prioritising, are they? Yeah.
They are in many ways. Like, I think people know, I've been campaigning on public transport issues to increase the number of buses we have in the Dublin 15 area and to make sure we get the Maynooth line electrified to a DART standard. I suppose one of the points I've been making is it's about how the Department of Transport spends its money. We want to change the way it spends its money, and that 2/3 of its budget would go on public transport and only 1/3 of it would go on roads. That would mean we could deliver those extra buses. We could deliver the upgrade to the DART line. We could also look maybe at extending the Lewis through Finglas and up around the back of Kappa and Blanchardstown. I think that's something that should be investigated as well. Would be hugely beneficial for maybe Tyrrellstown or Corduff, for some of the industrial estates at the back of Dublin 15, big employment areas. So that requires money. We're upfront in that, so it means we just change the way we spend money in the Department of Transport.
That would be great if the Lewis went to Finglas and Kappa and then to Blanchardstown. The pension issue, as you mentioned there, is a huge issue, and it's only come up recently, hasn't it?
It did. It literally, I think, the beginning of this week, it suddenly from, I think on Monday night, one person mentioned it with me on the door, and on Tuesday night, about 30 people mentioned it. And look, I think there's a lot of people approaching retirement age who have worked extremely hard all their lives, have supported their families, raised their families, and just feel that additional year of work is it's an unfair burden. We all know people are living longer, and that's a great thing. But the idea that we basically compel people to work an extra year if they don't want to is unfair. Listen, I think we need a lot of flexibility about retirement. There are plenty of people who love their work and absolutely don't want to retire, and that's why we need to get rid of mandatory retirement ages. No one should be forced to retire against their will. But we also need a situation where there is flexibility. And we also have to be upfront, though, we need to address the funding of pensions going on. We do have an ageing population. There are less kind of people in the working age group to provide the funds for pensions. So we are going to have to examine how we fund our pensions going forward. But the compulsory raising of the retirement age for everybody is not the right way to go. It's gone up to 66, and the Green Party are very clear it shouldn't be raised any further.
Okay, I just have two other issues to raise with you. Crime is a big issue in Dublin West and parts of Dublin West at least. Most of our listeners today listening to us on Near FM live in North East Dublin, so most of them probably wouldn't be very au fait with Dublin West crime levels or anything like that. Could you give our listeners a bit of background on the issue of crime in Dublin West in recent years?
Well, I think that there were a spike of burglaries in parts of December and parts of January, and I think that's left people quite concerned. Recently, I've become chairperson of the Fingal Joint Policing Committee, which is where councillors meet with the Gardaí in Blanchardstown on a quarterly basis with the chief superintendent to go through the statistics for crime in the area. And certainly, one of the issues I'll be raising with them is the need for the Gardaí to respond more quickly, get their squad cars out more quickly to events, particularly to break-ins, but also answering the phones at the station in Blanchardstown. There's a lot of concern that the phone is just ringing out when people are reporting suspicious activity in their area.
God. Okay, there's another issue, I won't keep you all day raising, there's loads of issues we could talk about. I see that you mentioned in one of your recent leaflets the issue of noise pollution. This is on the M50. This is an issue that affects a lot of people close to the M50. Can you tell us a bit about more what you are doing on this issue?
Something close maybe to your own heart,
Yeah.
Darren, as you're living locally as well.
Yeah.
Well, look, I suppose the M50 and the major roads going through Dublin 15, there's the issue of noise and there's the issue of air pollution as well. And I've been working on the two, and the M50 is controlled by Transport Infrastructure Ireland. So I've been looking for much clearer information about the levels of noise pollution and the levels of environmental pollution, and particularly this gas called nitrogen dioxide that comes from the exhaust of cars and can be quite dangerous, particularly to young children. So I put in a Freedom of Information request to Transport Infrastructure Ireland, and I found out they'd been monitoring the levels along the M50, but up to that point they hadn't actually publicised the measurements that they were finding. So now those measurements are up on a website, and people can view what is the level of nitrogen dioxide in their estates. Because as you know, there are quite a lot of estates in Laura Lodge and down in Carpenterstown which back out right onto the M50. Some of them are quite old, but some of them are very new. If you think of Hamilton Park, Dizzlestown Manor, they're very new estates. A lot of young children in there, and I suppose, you know, people are exposed to high levels of fumes from cars when they're working in town. They're exposed there every day. But now we have a situation where when they come home at night, even in their estate, they're going to be exposed to high levels of nitrogen dioxide as well. So we need to monitor that, and we need to bring in measures to actually reduce the amount of nitrogen dioxide that people are being exposed to.
Is there any solution to the noise problem on the M50?
There's a few things we can look at, and the one I've always argued for is that we need a noise absorbing surface put onto the M50. If you know the Newlands Cross Bridge down near Bewley's there on the way out past close to Rathcoole, that bridge goes quite close to a hotel, so they put a certain surface on it which, when you drive over it, significantly reduces the amount of noise from the from car wheels. So if we had that all the way from, let's say, the M50 bridge between Laura Lodge and Castleknock all the way down to the big bridge over the River Liffey, I think that would provide a significant amount of relief for estates along there. The other thing that we can look at is improved noise barriers. We have some of those wooden ones, but they're arguable how effective they are. I'm not sure if they're high enough, and I'm not sure if they're dense enough to actually provide real sound protection. Noise pollution, I think in Ireland, it's not something we've ever really recognised as a big issue, but I think the World Health Organization have shown that significant noise pollution, particularly at night, can have a massive impact on people's sleep and therefore on their overall health.
And is there any hope, do you think, over the next year or so that there's going to be change and there's going to be something brought in?
Well, look, if I get elected to the Dáil, one of the first things I look to do is get Transport Infrastructure Ireland in front of the Dáil, the Oireachtas Transport Committee, and question them about what they plan to do. Because on Fingal drew up a noise action plan, and we have identified the problems on the M50. But the problem is the solutions don't lie with Fingal. The solutions lie with Transport Infrastructure Ireland, the state body that runs the M50, and it's up to them to do something. And really, I would use my position as a TD to call them to account for what they've failed to do over the last number of, but really 2 or 3 decades at this stage since the M50 was expanded.
All right, to come towards the end of the interview and to finish on a positive note, I've known you longer than this, but I interviewed you for the first time, I think it was in 2014, at the inaugural meeting for Cllr and the Tulkin, the Gael Cllr for Dublin 15. I know you are a big supporter of that school. It's great news that the school or the unit is up and running, isn't it?
It's brilliant news, and look, that was a very much a parent-led campaign to get the Aonid attached to Luttrellstown, and it's great to see it up and running. There is a very strong demand for Irish language education at both primary level and secondary level across Dublin 15. I was a bit disappointed recently to see that Cllr, which is kind of the very long-standing primary school in the area, hasn't been given the resources to actually expand and take another class next year. I think that was quite a disappointing decision from the Department of the Department of Education. But look, I'll continue to support that school and all the other Gael Cllr and Gael Scullin in Dublin 15, because I think, parents and children should have that option to study Oscailga if they wish.